time is now 5:07. The Warwick Finance Committee is now open. No, we're not. The first item up is PCR 21-23. The first bid for discussion is bid 2023-323 Alpha. City of Warwick, District 6 gasoline, low sulfur diesel, and ultra low sulfur diesel. Good evening. Please identify your name, department, and position. Thank you, Chrissy.
Good evening. Christy Moretti, Public Works Business Manager. Public Works is requesting to award the bid for diesel and unleaded fuel for our department to Roberts Energy. They were the lowest. They were the bidder with the lowest increment for our department in the amount of $1.2 million for both products.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Christy.
Good evening.
Christy, you're looking to essentially increase your numbers by about 20% from last year. Is this increase reflective upon the cost of gas or the cost of diesel?
It's both.
So as of today, the average cost of gasoline has not changed from a year ago. It's actually less than it was in 2020 through 2021. Diesel fuel is up a fair amount. So does this weigh heavily on the gas or the diesel?
It's both products. It's dependent on when the delivery comes in and how much it's priced at that day in the Port of Providence. You know, who knows? Next month we could be at $5 a gallon again for unleaded. I have no way of predicting that. What we do is we award this bid based on the increment that we pay over the posted daily price for the fuel. So our last delivery of unleaded was $2.68 a gallon and our diesel was $3.37. Yes, but we've seen it as high as, well, the diesel in particular, almost $5 a gallon, and unleaded was almost $4. So I can't predict the economy as far as this commodity. So we are asking for $1.2 million for the new contract that starts on April 10th, 2023.
Are you, I'll take that back. Do you have more vehicles in DPW now than you did a year ago?
We have, yeah, we do. We do. We have more trucks in our yard. Some of the old ones are still used just for certain things like plowing or sanding or a reserve truck for something. And then we have our newer vehicles. We also supply for all other departments except for police and fire, so.
You said you have more trucks in the yard. Are those trucks in the yard also on the road, or are they just in the yard?
It's dependent on what the job of the day is. It varies from day to day. Some of them are on the line for, 2 weeks, and then they need to use it for something, and some of them could be out every day. It's entirely dependent on what the workflow is.
But they're all being used. It's not vehicles just sitting there because they don't operate or don't work.
No, they're not
Okay.
just sitting there.
Okay. In your budget of $1.2 million, other than the vehicles that are assigned to the Department of Public Works, what other departments are getting fuel from that 1.2 million?
The water department, field maintenance, sanitation, Transwick, the library, automotive, School department. Those are our primary users.
So police and fire don't get any fuel from
No,
this
not,
1.2?
not unless they're having an issue with a pump somewhere, but no, not typically.
With this increase that you're looking for, particularly in your item, 1.2 million, so a portion of that will be used to finish out the last quarter of this year, correct?
Correct.
And how much is that amount?
Approximately 400,000 between both commodities.
Between what?
Between both commodities.
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear what you said. Between both what?
Between gas and diesel.
Oh, okay, okay. Approximately 400,000?
Yes.
For the last quarter? You're sure on that number?
Yes.
And how much do you have left in your budget as of today?
I didn't run the numbers for these budget codes today. One of them is, I believe diesel is somewhere around $147,000 and unleaded is 90,000.
So what I've come up with is not 400,000 left. So if you're going to use 400,000 out of the 1.2 million, that leaves you with 800,000 for 3 quarters in 2024 fiscal year. Is that the correct number to finish the year? Or will you having to come back to us for additional monies like we have done, I think, a couple of times this year?
This is for spending authority on a new contract, so it's a bid cap. It goes from April to April. So we estimate that we may spend about $400,000 from the beginning of this new contract until the end of June. And then the balance of the contract would be from July until the following April. And then we would have a new contract after that. So I'm not, I mean, is it 3/4 of a year after July 1? Yes, essentially. But we're in the same boat as all the time with the way this contract runs.
So I'm still sitting here trying to figure out where you're going to get the remainder of the 400,000 that you need to finish this fiscal year. And I can't figure that out. So could you tell us where the rest of the 400,000 is going to come from? Are you going to be needing to do a transfer from one account to another? How are you going to come up with 400,000 that you don't have left?
Yes, as the finance director presented to this council meeting or two ago, that we're running a surplus in Public Works right now because of monies in personnel and some of the other utilities. So we'll have to do a budget transfer, but that's where those funds will come from.
And how much do you anticipate that transfer to be?
$400,000.
All 400. So do you have monies remaining now to go from now until April 10th?
Yes, I just said that. We
You
do.
just said
With
that.
what we have left in our budget codes now,
Yeah.
we should be able to get through with whatever remaining invoices we have up until the end of this contract on April 9th.
Okay. And then you're going to have to transfer 400,000 from other line items in your department to pay for the fuel for the rest of this fiscal year.
Right.
So then it's fair to say that there's $400,000 of monies in your department that's in excess of the budget requirement?
It's not in excess by the budget requirements, but we have had job vacancies. We have had people that have been out long-term and leave no pay. So we have some surplus there from those jobs being vacant. It's not that we don't have the job. The job is there. It's just not being paid because whoever had it or is in it is not getting, there's no salary being paid.
That's a significant difference. Tell me again which line items that 400,000 transfer is coming from, please.
I don't have those specific line items tonight. That's something that would be done with the finance department. But the funds would be transferred into 65220 and 65221, which is the budget codes that we're asking the spending be granted, which are the fuel budget codes.
And when will that transfer take place?
It will take place prior to the end of this contract.
Of this contract?
Yes, so we have it in place for the new one that starts April 10th.
And if I remember correctly, when that type of transfer takes place, other than the one at the end of the fiscal year where the mayor has the right to transfer, when those type of transfers you're speaking about take place, I believe the city council has to be notified of those transfers?
I couldn't speak to that. That's not a function of my position.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that there's an ordinance on the books on that. I could be wrong, but in any event, if you could request the finance director to let me know and my colleagues on the council which line items he anticipates transferring this money from so that we can keep an eye on those line items as well.
Those requests are to be made through the mayor's office was my directive. So anything that's requested
Okay.
would have to be through his office.
Okay, so I'll just do that request myself. Another thing I noticed in this bids for the different departments, so you're referencing different things here, and I say you, I'm just speaking in generalities. I know it's Eric that's on the sheet here, but on the item for your department, it says that this vendor offered the lowest increment over the daily posted price for oil. On the one for the police department, it says that the price is calculated from the lowest terminal unbranded gasoline low rack price with non-exempt taxes. And on the fire department, it says, based on the oil price daily provided by Oil Price Information Services, Port of Providence. Why are they all different? Or are they the same?
They're all the same. They're just using different terminology. It's a publication that comes in to my email, and then it gets distributed to the other departments that utilize and purchase fuel.
And what's that publication that we should be looking for?
It's, they just changed the name. It was called Oil Price Daily. I can't remember what they just changed the name to it as well.
It used to be called what?
Oil Price Daily, OPIS. So it's a daily report that I get
Okay.
every day. So that way, no matter who gets fuel delivered on what day, we have the price that it was for the day it was delivered.
Councilman, if I may.
Sir.
I'd like to go around and ask other members of the council. You exceeded your time, but if there's a final follow-up question you'd like to do, I'm going to ask other council members if they have a question, and then I'll refer back
So,
to you.
Are my 10 minutes gone?
Yes, sir. I gave you 12 minutes. But if you have a final follow-up question, that's fine, but I just want to give the other members of the council an opportunity. Are there any other members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm looking over the bid for this year as well as the similar bids from 1 year previous. So I see that around this time last year, the DPW had a bid for 850,000 as opposed to 1.2 million. I understand the logic of we don't know exactly where these gas and diesel prices are going to go during this contract period of April of this year through April of next year. So I suppose that my first question is this additional contract award going to be reflected more or less in the budget for this upcoming fiscal year?
It will, in the sense that when the budget is prepared for fiscal year '24, we will ask for 1.2 million, knowing that this contract is going to expire on April 9th, 2024. But we still have 3 months of next fiscal year that we have to get to. So we're going to budget for what's appropriate for a fiscal year. Right now, we have to make some adjustments to our budget for this fiscal year, and then the balance will be shown in next fiscal year plus, because we'll have another contract coming up in a year from now.
That makes sense. Generally speaking, the ratio of gasoline to diesel is more or less in the same neighborhood as it was last year.
The price for fuel has been all over the place this past calendar year, even. I should say last calendar year. It's hard to know what we're expecting, to pay, because we don't know what the price is going to post at, and what, if there's a world crisis or a transmission line catches on fire or whatever. Everything affects the price of fuel. So we do the best we can to estimate what our usage is going to be, but to know exactly, it's nearly impossible.
I can appreciate that. It's not as if we in the city of Warwick are controlling the market. It's a global market. People get upset at the President of the United States or Congress for the price of gas, when really even at the federal level, they have extremely limited control, much less here locally. One item that I was also curious about was that the various amounts from these different bidders. I'm looking at page 3 of the packet. It seems that relative to the amounts stated on bids this time last year, it seems like the bids have been inching up, and that's obviously not something that we have control over, but since it does seem to be inching up significantly across the board, I was wondering if you might have any insight into why that is.
If I had to guess, it just goes hand in hand with the price of fuel as it trends nowadays. We are up from the current increment we use now. Diesel is, this bid is an increase of 0.0157 per gallon, and for unleaded, it's an increase of 0.0147 per gallon. So it's very little, all things considered. We're not up, 4 cents a gallon. So, I mean that, and then if you, just to clarify the way things look on this, police and fire get different, and sewer, they get different increments because of the volume or lack of volume that they use for whatever product. We use a lot of diesel and unleaded. So we get maybe a better increment than another department because of the volume, and we are a one drop. Our fuel's in our yard, and they come do one drop, and that's it.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, and thank you for explaining that. I was I was curious about that as well, in that I know that there are some different items that in recent years there have been more collaboration between departments, and even so far as on some different items, even joint bids between the city side and the school department side. And so is this something where, because of the advantages of buying in bulk, something where the different city departments, DPW, fire, police, may do joint bids in the future, and then obviously it would have to, due to the budget codes and accountability, need to then be a matter of, I suppose, additional work, making sure that there's some tracking of who's using what fuel. But would there be any appreciable cost savings in that process if the bids were to be all done collectively instead of split into three?
Well, this bid is done collectively. They're just assigned separate letters. So each department can present and get approval for their own portion. But when this bid goes out, it goes out with 4 departments. So, and the school department gets their fuel from us. So and when I say us, I mean DPW. So we're already doing their part as well. So it is a collective bid. It's just, the fire department has 1,000 gallon pumps at different stations, and police uses a different product from everybody. So they have their own pump. And so that's why the numbers are kind of all over the place.
And I'm sorry, I might not be entirely following. And I do see that it's all part of bid 2023-323, and then separated out with the letters A, B, C. So
what gets advertised is what you see on page 3, along with the other specifications for the products and, whatever terms that the city expects. And then items 1 through 4 are the bid. That's the bid pricing page. So all the departments that you see listed are listed on that bid pricing page. So we do the bid together. It's just separated out on the docket. So each department gets their own approval.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, we're already doing what I was bringing up as a possibility. Really, it is all together as one bid, and so we really are already getting the lowest prices, even if the vendor wasn't aware that we were really separating it out into the different categories.
Right, because we all have our own budget codes for spending authority. So that's why a lot of times you'll see things that have an A, B, and a C, and it's different departments, because we do it together, but then separate it for purposes at council. Okay, in that case, I guess that I'm just a little bit confused as to why the city would be allocating some of the costs to some of the departments higher than other departments instead of allocating it at the same level. But we could always follow up on that outside of the meeting. I don't want to take more time than necessary. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Are there any further questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattis, sir, I said that you could have some more. You're all set, sir? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members of the public? Comments or questions from members of the public? Please identify yourself at the microphone. Good.
Rob Cody, Ward 7. I have a question not directed to Christie, but maybe to the department director or to the finance chairman. When are we going to institute some measures for efficiency and we can stop the waste and abuse and the usage of the diesel fuel. When are we going to do that? As you all know, my first day off in months, what do I see? I catch.
Mr. Cody, we're discussing the purchase of the fuel. That would be a separate issue, so this has to do with the bid. So that to me is a separate issue.
No, it's not a separate issue.
This is about the purchase of the
fuel. It's usage of the fuel.
It's the purchase of the
Don't
fuel
try
we're
to
speaking
deflect
of.
it. Yeah, I know it's purchasing
Authorizing the purchase
right?
of the fuel by a bid.
Right, yeah, you
So
have,
this has,
Mr. Howell, you have to purchase the fuel before you.
you're
can use it,
absolutely right.
Right? And using the
Absolutely right.
fuel is
So, Mr.
directly.
Cody, if you have a question
Here we
about the
go.
purchase of the fuel, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about purchasing the fuel. It's
About-
about the amount of fuel that we're purchasing, and because we have issues that have been documented of waste, and I would like to know what measures we're putting in to make it more efficient so we
Again,
don't
Mr.
have to
Cody,
purchase that.
Again, Mr. Cody, this is about the purchasing of the fuel. What you're speaking of is another measure and another issue. So
It's not another issue,
It
Mr.
is,
Howell. No, it's not.
absolutely. The
It's a matter of fact that my
Please stop interrupting. Please stop interrupting. The bid.
You need to stop interrupting.
The bid has already been put out. We
Yeah.
are discussing the bid that was put out, and we are discussing authorizing the bid to purchase the fuel or authorize the spending of the money and to increase the cap for the purchase of the fuel. That's what we're discussing.
Yeah, and what we're discussing is, you gonna keep interrupting?
You go ahead with that statement, but if it's a question about the actual bid and the purchase of the fuel.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's relevant. Maybe you don't see that because you rubber stamp everything. My question is, why are we using so much fuel? This is the third meeting I've been to where the departments have come to this body asking for more fuel. More fuel every time, $70,000 for the fire department, for DPW, constant increases in their fuel budget. But we see on a regular basis the waste and the abuse of the vehicles.
Mr. Cody, I'm making a generalized statement of the waste and the abuse. The fact of the matter is, we are discussing at this council meeting, at this moment, the purchase and the authorization of the fuel.
Right. And
So you obviously do not have a question concerning that.
Yes, I do.
You have a statement and you have an
I have a
assumption,
question.
but I ain't speaking
But
about the
you
bid.
just want to
You're
deflect.
talking about totally separate issue.
It's not a separate issue. My question is, relative to the expense of the fuel, what measures are we instituting to limit the expense of the fuel so what we expend is used in the most efficient manner possible of the taxpayers' money? That's a valid question.
That is a valid question, but
So,
not for
why don't
this
I
bid.
answer that one?
Not for this bid. We are discussing.
So what is it for? When do we ask that question?
Mr. Cody, I realize that, you have a microphone and you want to make a statement. However, there's a process.
No, I just
and a
want an
time.
answer.
There's a process and a time. And what we're doing in this finance committee is not talking about policy, we're talking about purchase. So this is about authorizing the purchase of the fuel. So you have.
How
no
many times are you
further
going to say
questions.
that? To waste my time.
You have no further questions.
I have further questions. I want that question answered.
You do not have further questions.
So when do you get to ask that question?
It is now in a 2-minute recess.
Here we go, because you don't have the balls to answer the question. That's what it is.
Mr. President, I ask the question back in this council, and this is to be excused.
Interrupt me 15 times.
Good evening, and thank you, everyone. The time is 5:43. The recess is over on the Warwick Finance Committee. I do want to say that there's something of, we do require and we do our best to hold a form of decorum in this chamber. We welcome discussion. We welcome in participation, but insults, name-calling, and any type of childish gestures and childish actions should not be allowed and will not be allowed in this chamber. With that said, are there any further questions from members of the public? Please identify at the microphone. You're on.
Cindy Wilson. So I'm curious, because I understand forum and how you have a procedure. So when would that question be asked? Because like you probably heard me say, for me, if I'm doing my house budget and I decide I need more money, I say, am I couponing? Am I shopping at the right store? Are we buying name brands? So when does this get addressed? Because I've seen the fire department at Presto Strangio at the top of my street.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I know. So, okay, the question is, when does this get addressed?
So this is, my understanding, this is up at the administration level. We are at the finance committee right now, and we are discussing the purchase and the authorization for fuel to keep the services going.
Okay, I get that.
Please don't interrupt.
No, I understand.
Please.
No, you just
No,
want to
I'm
take
going
your
to
time.
finish.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm going to finish. I'd like to finish. To keep the school department going, to keep the Department of Public Works going, the direct services to our citizens, and in the next budgets, we'll talk, and in the next bids, we'll talk about the fire and the police.
Okay.
That's what we are speaking about here. The
I get that.
policy making is at the executive level and taken on by the council.
Oh, and taken on by the council. So
When
when
it
someone's
becomes
here
time.
asking for money, you don't want to say, how can we need more money because you're wasting money? I just don't get it. I don't get it. Why wouldn't you want to know? I mean, you know, because we keep telling you what's going on. She's asking for more money for fuel, for diesel fuel. Why don't you want to know? No answer? Shocking. You should be ashamed. You really should.
Are there any further comments, questions from members of the public? Thank you. Bid 2023-323 Bravo, City of Warwick, District 6, gasoline, low sulfur diesel, ultra low sulfur diesel fuel. Good evening, Major.
Good evening, Major Andy Sullivan for the Police Department. The Police Department went out to bid for gasoline. Bids were received from 5 vendors. The Police Department is recommending the bid be awarded to Roberts Energy LLC of Springfield, as they were the lowest overall qualified bidder. The bid would be for 1 year beginning April 10th, 2023 and end on April 9th, 2024. The Police Department is seeking $450,000 in spending authority. If approved, funding would be drawn from Police Operating Budget Code 30-220 gasoline.
Thank you, Major. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there any further questions from members of this council? Any further questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Bid 2023-323 Charlie, City of Warwick, District 6, gasoline, low sulfur diesel, ultra low sulfur diesel fuel. Good evening, Chiefs. Please identify.
Jason Umbenhauer, Assistant Chief of the Fire Department.
Thank you.
Fire Department is recommending that the bid award for diesel fuel be awarded to Roberts Energy. This will be a 1-year bid for an amount not to exceed $300,000.
Thank you, Chief. Questions from members of this committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Good
Yes,
evening,
sir.
Chief.
Good evening.
Chief, my questions are going to be related to the results of the cost of fuel, or the reasons for using X dollars amounts of fuel or not. And I know DPW, they have GPSs, I believe, on all of the sanitation vehicles. I'm not sure about all the vehicles 100%. Does the fire department have GPSs on any of the vehicles in the fire department?
Yeah, all of our fire apparatus are GPS located.
Does the fire department keep track of the travel on those vehicles? And keep in mind, again, the reason I'm asking these questions is because $300,000 is certainly a lot of fuel. And when you have vehicles that are probably averaging 4 or 5 miles per gallon, it doesn't take long for the cost of this fuel to increase. I think that asking questions to make a determination whether or not the financial requests are, in my mind, justified or warranted. Because I need to know answers to questions before I can approve or disagree with something. So when the fire apparatuses, and forgive me if I get the definitions wrong, because typically I mess it up, ladder trucks, engines, rescues. Does the fire department keep track or have a log on each vehicle for emergency and non-emergency runs, I'll call it, for lack of a better word?
There's a question in response to the GPS location or to their mileage and fuel usage?
To the use of the vehicles and the mileage, which all uses gas, obviously, or diesel fuel.
Correct. Yeah, the dispatchers have a real-time location of all of our fire apparatus at all times. That information is also accessible by the chief officers on duty. So we have awareness of where those trucks are at any moment of the day. And we do have playback ability to be able to determine where trucks were if we had to trace them back through a historical period. And those mileages are calculated and compared to the mileage and fuel usage on a month-to-month basis.
So you have someone who monitors when the truck leaves the barn, monitors the mileage wherever it happens to be going, whether it's on an emergency run or not an emergency run, and when they get back to the station. You're keeping track of these mileages.
Correct. Those at all times, those GPSs are unable to be turned off, so they're being tracked and logged real time.
Okay. Okay, so that is logged. So if I were to request again, I don't know how you refer to it, I just call it a trip ticket on a particular day of a particular vehicle, you would have a log for that.
I would be able to play the log back. I don't know if I could make that in a printable form. It's a computer-based vehicle locating system. I could play it back, but I don't know if I could per se give you a printout of it or send it to you electronically.
So where I'm going with this is trying to get some sort of a sense as to how many miles per year per vehicle are being applied to the vehicle for emergency runs and non-emergency runs. And I think that's an important number, at least to me, it's an important number when I'm looking at the cost of fuel, the cost of replacing vehicles, the wear and tear on vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, thank you. I'm glad that you were able to answer those questions, and probably be prudent for me to follow up with you at some point in the future.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Any further questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public?
Are those records, is that public records that I could obtain myself?
Chief?
Like I said to the council person, public records are things that I can put into print, documents that we exist and have. So if you do a public records request, it has to be a document that's existed in the fire department. Something like this that the councilman was requesting is more of a research, and it's an electronic kind of playback. It's video, it's not really a
So
piece
there's
of
not a
paper that I can
timeline
watch.
that could be recorded, like from this time to this time they were just sitting, or it's nothing like that?
But yeah, by public records, I don't have to produce the document for you. I just have to produce a existing document. So this wouldn't be an existing document. This would be something I'd have to create for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions from members of the Councilman Gebhardt?
Chief, just a quick question. What's the software that you use to play that GPS?
It's our main dispatch software. It's Symposium. That's the CAD vendor that we use. They have a vehicle locating system that just basically it's a push and pull of the GPS
Thank you.
data.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of the public? Thank you. That concludes the large dollar items of the bid package. I would now going to do we will now do where I will ask members of the committee, then members of the council, then members of the public, if there's any items they would like to pull for discussion. So I'll give everyone a moment to review. Councilwoman Travis wasted no time. What do you?
I got 2023-376, that's for page 117. Oh, sorry. I'd like to pull 2023-376, purchase boat, motor, and trailer for the harbor master. It's found on page 117.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else, any other items from the committee? Are there any items from members of the council that would like to, Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Chairman. So it's a basic overall question on bid number 2023-61, 62, and 311. And these questions would be asked to the clerk, and they could impact any of those. Can we just kind of like do them as one?
So what you want to do is ask the question on one and that, but the answer would pertain to all of them?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, duly noted.
I'm sorry?
We can get that, we can get to it, and then we can open it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other one I have is 2023-88, found on page 84.
2023-88, found on page 84?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the other would be 2023-024, found on page 100.
2023-024 on page 100. Thank you.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other items members of the council would like to discuss? Are there any items on the bid package members of the public would like to discuss? Are there any items on the bid package members of the public would like to discuss? Thank you. So we'll begin with Councilman Lattiser's for the city clerk. That would be bid 2023-061. This is found on page 13, probate court advertising. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Councilman.
The first question I have, I noticed all three items looking for an increase of 10,000 per each item. It brings me to the question of why do you need this extra money in the first place?
It covers all the advertising for what we do. So right now, the original amounts that I had requested were cut back. So right now I have 10,000 in the budget for my city council. I'm already at 8,300. I have an outstanding bill that is 4,400 to be paid. I don't have enough money in there and I have to make it till June. Those are city council only. That covers all ordinances, abandonments, zone changes to that. And we've been busy.
I think I know the council, at least I shouldn't say I know, but I think the council has put forth a lot of ordinances in the past year.
Quite a few, and everything has
Yeah.
to get advertised.
And my other question is, so probate court advertising, city clerk advertising, et cetera, this advertising that you're requesting additional monies for, is any of this monies going to the cost of the mailings, et cetera, that the Board of Canvassers had to do as a result of the ballot error?
Absolutely not. I
They're not.
don't cover any of that.
Okay.
That's separate to the Board of Canvassers. I cover my city clerk advertising is specific to city council business.
Okay.
And the probate court advertising, it's split between the Beacon and the Kent County Daily Times. And that's for all the petitions in probate that need to be advertised along with any certificates of appointments and qualifications.
So the Board of Canvassers is responsible for its own budget and
They
its
are
own
responsible
expenses,
for
its
their
own
own
advertising?
advertising.
Thank you.
Correct. I don't have anything to do with that.
Thank you. I'm all set on that one,
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there questions from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. A follow-up question for the city clerk on those items. So for the probate court advertising and the following item, the 2023-62 city clerk advertising, those respectively, the advertising fees would be paid by, generally speaking, the petitioners, but because of how the city does its budget, having the revenue separate from the expenditures, basically this is all or pretty much all money that the city is getting back in revenue, but it's my understanding that we have to have the authority to authorize those expenditures anyway, even though pretty much all of it is coming back in revenue through these petitioners, right?
That's correct. On the probate court advertising, the petitioner pays for all their advertising, but like you said, it goes back into revenue. So that comes right back. Any city council, zone changes, abandonments, that sort of thing gets paid by the petitioner. However, all ordinances get paid by the city.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions from members of the council? Any further questions from members of the public? Further questions from members of the public? Thank you. The next item is bid 2023-062, city clerk advertising. Councilman Lattiser? Yep. So because you called it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask
I'm
if
all
there's
set.
discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion from members of this committee? Members of this council? Any discussion on bid 2023-062 for members of the public? Thank you. And Councilman Lattiser, understanding, because again, we pulled it, I'm going to allow for
Yeah,
discussion.
I'm all set on that one as well, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Bid 2023-311, municipal court software support. Members of this committee, members of this council, are there any questions from members of the public? 2023-311. Any discussion from members of the public? Thank you. Next, we will discuss bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13. This is found on page 84, and this was requested by Councilman Lattiser. Councilman Lattiser, I'm sorry, Councilman. Chrissy, would you please identify yourself for the record?
Christy Moretti, Public Works Business Manager.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. So Christie, I'm sure you remember when this came to us in the first place, I had a lot of questions and was really concerned with the damage that was allegedly caused by hitting this cement bollard. It still blows my mind how a windshield can be broken when you're turning a vehicle around and sustaining all this damage. It's not like you're driving 50 miles an hour. You're turning a vehicle around that's 80 feet long and you're doing maybe 3-4 miles an hour. So it's still a very frustrating situation. This item that you're looking for now of an additional $14,614.87, the number in total that says the final amount to be paid is $25,155.99. The two amounts that you're asking for this approval on is the original amount of $10,451.12, correct?
That I've already received approval for.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm talking to the total number.
Okay, but you asked if that was correct, so
Okay.
yes.
And the last number is the one that you have now of $14,614.87.
Correct.
Is there anything else in the calculation of this 25,159.55.99 to be considered?
No.
Well, when I do the math on $10,451.12 and I add $14,614.87, the number I come up with is $25,065.99. Now, if someone wants to double check my math on that, I'm fine with it. I've done it a few times, and there's a $90 difference. So I think we need an explanation on that. The other thing equally concerning to me, at least in my binder, I don't ever recall seeing any photos of the damage to this piece of apparatus. Do you recall if we had ever received photos of the damage?
I never received photos of the
No,
damage.
I don't either. I don't ever remember seeing any photos. And in this package right now, the only thing that I have in my package is a copy of the 10,000 change that we approved a million moons ago, and then an invoice from Greenwood for $25,155.99. I don't have, and by the way, that's a 240% increase over the original estimate that they gave us for a vehicle that struck up some sort of a post or cement pier or whatever it struck, doing a very slow speed. This is a 240% increase. And I don't see anything in here, in addition to the numbers being wrong, I don't see anything in here that tells us what this additional $14,614.87 is paying for.
The bumper alone was almost $5,000.
I don't see,
that-
Christie, I'm still
please.
talking. I don't see an invoice in this binder that informs us of what we are being asked to pay for. There is nothing in here. If anyone ever sent me a bill for 15 grand, said, you owe me $15,000 in addition to what you already paid me, without sending me an invoice, they would never get paid until I got a copy of the invoice. There's no breakdown. We have, at least I have, nothing in my binder that tells me what did they do, what was the additional stuff, what was it they couldn't see on the initial inspection, what was the labor rate, what was the cost of the pots, what was the mock-up of the pots. Nothing. There's nothing here except a request for an additional $14,614.87. And that is wrong. That is terribly wrong. It is not at all being responsible to the taxpayers when we are not demanding an accounting of the vendor for what they're asking us to pay. I don't want to hear about, well, the trust is paying for it, it's insurance. We, eventually, the taxpayers, are paying the bills. The trust is not free. Insurance is never free. And your premium based on cost in, money in, money out. So I don't want to hear this argument about, well, the trust is paying for it, it's only insurance, what do you care? Well, I care a lot, because I cannot even imagine anyone in their own private world would cut a check for $14,614.87 when, by the way, again, it's the wrong amount, at least in totality, it's the wrong amount by $90, and not get an accounting of what they're paying for. So why should we approve this item tonight, $14,614.87, when there is an addition error in the total amount, at least by my math, and I haven't heard anyone tell me my math is wrong, and we have no accounting for what we are being asked to agree to pay? Makes no sense to me. So, Mr. Chairman, given that information, unless someone has something different, unless this committee has an itemized breakdown of what we're asked to pay for, or someone has a different math answer than what I have, I would suggest that this item be held until we get the proper number and we get a invoice showing us and telling us what the additional repairs were. What were the parts, what were the cost, what was the markup, and what was the labor rate? And I would like to be able to take a look at those and have a little bit of time to find out the other big question. Why wasn't it discovered in the first place? Now, there may be a very good reason for that. But then again, for 240% increase over the original estimate, there was a lot of stuff missing or missed. I'd like to know why.
Do we have a PCR number for that, please? So we just had a request to hold. However, I'm going to allow to continue with the conversation since we already began the conversation. The item has already been discussed.
Sure.
I have a PCR. This will be, if decided, the PCR 24-23. Is there any further questions from members of this committee? Now, there's questions from members of the council on this item. And questions from members of the public.
Hi, Cindy Wilson. So the first meeting I ever went to, which was quite some time ago, a woman was here trying to get money because she hit her car on something that she figured was Warwick's fault, something with the road. And they wouldn't honor it because she didn't have a police report. So I just want to make sure I understand this. They're asking for $25,000 and the truck was in an accident and there was no police report. We don't know why. We don't know what it hit. Is that what I'm understanding? Anybody?
The discussion that was just had by the councilman was he felt that there's not enough information in the finance docket. And so therefore, I called for a PCR, which would pull it from the bid docket. And it will then therefore give the department the time to get the information needed for this.
Was
payment.
there a initial police is there?
I can't answer that. So
They wouldn't have been required,
Ma'am,
they wouldn't
once
have been
again,
required to?
Ma'am, I'm going to answer the initial question. I can't answer to that.
You did. I got to tell
can't-
you, I got an
ma'am.
iWatch. It just alerted me my heart rate is up to 120 while I'm sitting for 10 minutes because of you.
To
Didn't
answer your
actually
first
name me.
question, to answer
No,
your
the
first
question is, are they
Ma'am.
required to have a police
Ma'am,
report?
to answer your first question,
Sir, are they
the-
required to
the-
have a police report? Are they
Mr.
required?
Mr. Chairman.
It's yes or no.
Councilman.
May I interject?
yes, but please give me a moment,
Okay.
Councilman.
No, yes,
Thank you.
they are required. Good.
Ma'am.
No, that's all I need to know. Thank you. I got to sit down.
So to answer the question that was asked is, we were given a packet. The councilman identified something that he felt wasn't left in the packet. It is up for this council and this committee to agree or disagree, and he made a request to put it on hold, and this committee will decide. I have a PCR for it, so that if it is held, it'll give the department time to get the information, and if that satisfies the councilman, then he can make a decision on where to vote for it from there. Thank you. So are there any further questions from members of the public?
My name's Rick Casella. Councilman Howe, when you make the request for the itemized bill that Councilman Lattiser asked for, are you able to make a request to the Warwick Police Department and ask them if they have a report on the accident so that can be conjoined with that itemization? Because it sounds like the councilman's awfully vague about what the circumstances were in the first place.
We are discussing here.
I know what you're discussing, but I'm asking.
Can I please answer a question without being interrupted?
Excuse me, sir.
We are discussing here authorization to pay the bill. A concern was brought up by the councilman. This committee will therefore decide upon what the councilman, whether to hold it or to continue with it as to pay the bid. I have a PCR, and will allow the department to do, and any requests from the council people, whether it be for a police report, whether it be for an itemized invoice, will be made, and the department can produce that information if so be it.
Okay, so,
Yes, please.
when you hold it, will it come back to this floor for discussion before you actually pay it? Like, are we going to do this again?
Thank you. Great question.
Okay.
Yes, it is now a PCR. I'm going to finish.
I thought
It
yes
is now a
was
PCR. So what the piece, pulling the PCR means it comes out of the bid package. The bid package is, this committee decides on items. We go through each item individually. We then send it to the council as part of the docket. We vote as a council on the docket upon the recommendation of the committee. However, if an item is pulled, it is given a PCR number. Once that PCR number is pulled, it must be heard from the entire council
Okay,
and voted upon by the council as an individual item.
okay. So my next question would be, do you believe in your capacity as a council member with many years of experience, as well as the head of the committee that's going to ultimately decide whether to pay the bill, do you believe it's important to have an itemized bill for the councilman at the time that you review this for final payment? And do you, I'm not finished. And do you believe that it's prudent, as you might as a private citizen, that you have a police report that has more specifics as to the circumstances around the accident in the first place?
My belief, it doesn't really matter. My working as the chairman of this committee is to listen to my colleagues, listen to the public, get the information that we are given, and guide this meeting and guide this committee to get the best result for the city.
So,
And the
following-
which includes, I apologize, which includes the citizens of the city.
okay, good. So following up on what you just said, if your guide, your charge, and your position as a executive of the committee is to listen to your constituency, listen to your council members, listen to other people in the community that have concerns, then I would guess then the most important thing you could do when you do come back is provide more detailed information, because the councilman asked for it. This young lady asked for that. And will you disregard those requests and just come back to the floor and vote on this, or?
I will explain again. It was in
You
the
don't
bid.
have to
No, no,
explain it again.
I think I have to.
Okay.
It was in the bid package. We discussed it within the bid package. Councilman Lattiser brought up some valid concerns. We pulled it as a PCR. We numbered it, and therefore it will be pulled out of the bid package because there were concerns. And it's not my decision, it's in the ordinance of the city that it will then be discussed amongst the council and voted on.
Okay, so there are concerns, you just said those words. I'm pulling
That
it
were
because
brought
there are.
up
Okay,
by
so-
a fellow council
So,
person.
and I'm not finished now. When you come back to the council, like you said, and go around all the people and ask them what they think, don't you think those specific concerns that were brought up by the public and the councilman should be supported by whatever documentation you can provide? I mean, it's an easy answer. Yes, of course, Rick. I only want what's straight and true for the city of Warwick. So you're very evasive.
I'll
I'm not
go
trying
back
get
to
in
the
anybody's
original
pocket.
explanation I gave.
Don't-
So when the bid package comes to us, someone has an issue with the bid, as Councilman Lattiser did, we pull it out, we assign it a PCR. That will give the department the time, if we hold it, which that was the request, to get all the information that the councilman requested while representing his constituents, get him all the information that he's asking for within
So
that.
so you know then that he asked for the itemization, which I'm sure that you will provide. And you know then there was a request for a copy of which you may have to go to the police department for. But the answer to the question was yes. And you went back and forth 3 times like I'm some juvenile trying to explain to me the process, when all you needed to do is say, Rick, we want to get all the
I
information.
wanted to make sure you completely understood.
I understand every single thing that you talk
Wonderful.
about.
Thank
I've
you.
been following you for years, okay? That's all I ask, is that we can get a straight answer. And frankly, if you're concerned about the citizens' concerns, I mean, I would, number one, I'd be looking around saying, where are all the citizens? There's nobody here to really gripe. And maybe that's something we need to work on, is getting more people in the building. But thank you very much for your time. I know you work very hard.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman.
Yes, sir, if I may. Following up on one of the comments from Mr. Casella, my intent was not to be vague on my requests. That was the reason why I asked if DPW had any photos. I don't recall seeing any photos when we approved the original amounts. Just because we didn't then doesn't mean we shouldn't now. So I would like to just be less vague, let's say, on my request. In addition to having an itemized invoice showing the pots that were used, the cost of the pots, the mock-ups, the amount of hours involved, the labor rate involved, I would also like to request the copy of the photos. I'm certain that there were photos taken, as well as a copy of the police report, which should indicate when this accident occurred, on May 14th, 2022. Again, my apologies, it wasn't my intent to be vague. Thank you.
Not vague at all. Thank you so much, Councilman. Are there any further comments, questions from members of the public? Thank you. So I had a request from Councilman Lattiser to have PCR 24, or I apologize, bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13, held as PCR 24-23. May I have I'll move favorable action.
I second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
Next meeting is March 6th, is that the motion?
Oh, yes, please, to include in the motion that the...
So noted.
Thank you. So the motion would be to hold PCR, well, bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13, till March 6th, that is now PCR 24-23.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman.
With all due respect, will the department have enough time to get that information?
Thank you. Would that be, you think that would be a good amount of time? I know we have a 1-week turnaround.
The request needs to be made through the mayor's office, but
Okay.
once we get the directive from the mayor's office, then we'll take care of it.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Can I suggest you go out a little further, because the binder has to go out tomorrow for March 6th?
Absolutely. Does that, yes. Thank you. Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for your input, City Clerk. Thank you. The next meeting would be March
20th.
20th. Thank you. So I'm going to put this motion out just for open purpose of clarity. May I have a motion for bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13, that is now PCR 24-23, to be held until March 20th?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Thank you. Next is bid 2023-024. This is HVAC maintenance and repairs for Thayer and Warburton Arenas. This is found on page 100. Councilman Lattiser.
Mr. Chairman, I'll pass on that. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Questions from members of this council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. The next item is bid 2023-376, purchase boat, motor, and trailer for Harbor Master. This is found on page 117. This was requested by Councilwoman Donna Travis. I'd like to just please identify yourself.
Beverly Wiley, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Jeff Barris, Harbor Master.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman.
Yes. Hello, Director and Harbor Master. How many boats do we have? For the, two. Okay. Now, did the other boat recently get a letter to go?
The last time we upgraded, we did get a new boat in 2010, and that was a complete boat motor trailer package. That was one that we acquired with a Homeland Security grant. The boat that we're looking to replace is our boat 1, which was the first one we ever had. And we bought that in 1993. We did put a new motor on that in 2011. So that, the boat that we're replacing did get its engine replaced. Actually, it's been replaced several times over its
Is that the one that we had to drive down?
Pardon?
Is that the boat that we had to pick it up, we had to drive it with the water? Was it coming up the road or something?
No.
No, that's not the one, okay. But this is a 2008, right? So that's like 15 years old. right?
15 years old, yes.
Okay. And mine is like 14 years old.
It's the same. The motor was mounted on that boat at the time it was new.
Now, is it true that you're going to be refurbishing and you're going to be putting new electronics in it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And, let me see, repowering, refinishing the existing harbor master boat. So you think, even though it's this age now, I used to say that for vehicles, why can't we just refinish them, put a new motor in, we could save some money? But I'm just trying to make sure that this is going to be worth the money. It sounds like a lot of stuff to get for only $18,000, getting a boat, a motor, and a trailer. I'm just hoping it's good, it's going to last for a while anyway.
Oh, I think so. The boat's actually in very good condition. We're getting it from the town of Warren.
Yes.
So it's already set up as a patrol boat. So it's something that it would be advantageous for us to get. The condition is pretty exceptional.
That's
And-
good. That's good to hear, because I don't want to get somebody else's junk and then we fix it up and it don't last.
No, you're right.
So that was my question.
Sure.
But sounds good. I'm glad you brought the harbor master with you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there questions from members of this council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So not, I guess, directly a question, but to speak to the harbor master's experience in, doing his job for as long as I can remember, doing it very well also. Jeff, you are also very experienced in boat construction, boat renovations, gel coating, et cetera, correct?
Yes, that's true, Ed.
So for all intents and purposes, you are extremely qualified, I would say, to do an inspection on a vessel before you make a recommendation to the council.
Yes, I appreciate that. And yes, I think I can
And
properly assess it, yes.
we know that this outboard is not, going to last forever, but the primary benefit to us as a city is the purchase of the vessel itself.
That's right.
And if we were to go out and purchase a new rig, set up with what this vessel will be set up with, what would be the approximate cost?
For this type of boat, the Romarine 24 Pilot House, if we were to have it made for us new, boat, motor, trailer, electronics package, we're probably looking at about $95,000.
So I think it's fairly safe to say that for $18,000, I think you're getting the taxpayers a pretty good value. And also for everyone's benefit, I just recently found out that the East Greenwich area may or may not have an active harbor master this season. And Jeff and his staff, they particularly patrol all down in that cove. I forget the name of the cove, Jeff, is down there where, East Greenwich is. And all of the surrounding waterways for this entire community. And not only in all the years that I've been on this city council, but all the years that I've known the harbor master, this is one department that has not been expensive for the city of Warwick. And it is long overdue to start putting some money into this department, giving the responsibility, and it's an enormous amount of responsibility that the harbor master and his associates, harbor masters, have. I support this wholeheartedly. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Harbor Master.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions, comments from members of this council? Questions, comments from members of the public?
Rick Casella. I first thought it was 118,000, so that's a very good deal. I agree with the councilman. What happens to the other boat that we replace if it hasn't sunk? Is it still seaworthy?
Director, okay, thank you.
The boat that we will replace, the 1993 21 Bluefin, will be set for a city auction.
Okay, just curious, thank you. We can't use it in any of the other departments?
I don't think so. The boat is actually kind of dangerously in bad condition. So we.
How do we let it get that way? No, I'm only kidding.
Well,
Okay.
you know, we bought that boat for $13,000 in 1993. So we got our money's worth out of her.
Thank you.
Yeah, but no, she'll be, we will keep her in service this season, just in case. And will be, at the end of the season, she'll be put aside and she'll be listed with city auctions.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Director. That concludes the bid package. If I may have a motion on PCR 21-23. I have a motion for favorable action. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number two, the Finance Committee agenda is PCR 20-23, a resolution relative to issuing requests for proposals for the American Rescue Plan Act community projects. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we have one this month, and it is from your ward, so if you would like to introduce that.
Thank you. Very simply, my community wellness committee got together, and my ward wellness committee got together, and there was just one movement where we were going to have 4 crosswalks put on Sandy Lane in the previous announced area, and all we're going to do is we're requesting to move one from where the library is, because we were going to look towards going closer to that street light. But it was determined that street light and the control of the traffic and the pedestrian crossing is beneficial. So we're going to take this, one of the 4 that was approved through the ARPA funding, and put it at Almy across the street to cross Strawberry Field Road. That's where Lippert Elementary School. So anyone familiar with Strawberry Field, it's a long stretch, and the speed limit is supposed to be 25, and it's an average of 50 sometimes. But so we're going to put the solar lights right where Almy across the street to Strawberry Field, and that is what the request is. So to move one location of the 4 requested crossing lights. And I respectfully welcome comment, but request favorable action. Members of my committee. Councilman. Good, thank you. Members of the council. Councilman Lattisaw.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask if you could put my crosswalk at St. Kevin's on your list, please, seeing as I've been waiting for that for 5 years.
It sounds like
I'm just asking.
Great ARPA project there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Question, comments from members of the public? Thank you. May I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. The time is now 6:32 PM and the Finance Committee is closed.
The next committee to meet is the Ordinance Committee, and that can start at this time.
6:34.
The ordinance committee will now convene at 6:34 PM. First on the docket is acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on February 6, 2023.
Move to accept.
Second. Mr. Chairman, we're going to deal with minutes at the March 6th meeting.
So, skipping right ahead to PCO 18-22, an ordinance penalizing owners or lessees of vehicles used to carry materials to a place at which they are illegally dumped. This is Councilman Howe.
Request to hold until March 20th.
Move to hold.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
If I may, through the chair to Councilman Howe, I'd like to be added as a sponsor if I could.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you.
Councilman. Thank you.
So there was a request to hold till March 20th. There was a motion to hold till March 20th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is the end of the ordinance committee at 6:35 PM.
Public properties at 6:40.
Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs. We have 2 items on the docket. First up is PCO 5-23, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick, 281 Associates LLC, petitioner, Assessors Plat 246, lots 240, 243, 260, and 261, relating to 281 Centerville Road. Councilman Sinapi.
Request public hearing.
Sponsor request public hearing. Do we have a motion to refer to the full council for public hearing? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. 3-0. Second, last on the agenda, we have PCO 4-22 Sub B, an ordinance amending Appendix A, zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick to define, establish, and classify districts, create administrative procedures for short-term rental use of residential dwelling units, and provide supplementary regulations for the short-term rental of dwelling units. City of Warwick petitioner. This is for second passage. Councilman Lattiser is the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as everyone knows, we've had extensive dialogue on this particular ordinance. It's extended over at least 3 meetings. We've had in excess of 10 hours of testimony. We have had a public hearing which encompassed some 3+ hours of the total time I just referenced. And it was a very good exchange. It was a very good discussion. There were concerns expressed from members of the public on the initial ordinance that I had drafted. And the 2 big issues were the owner-occupied and the parking. The owner-occupied, I was pretty well or very strong on, and in listening to the public comment and the concerns, I felt that it was appropriate to make that amendment and eliminate the owner-occupied. In addition to that, Councilman Sinapi had made a couple of other amendments, one of which was the parking, and there were other amendments that we have made in this to make this palatable for everyone involved. With that said, it's my position that we have done our due diligence as an elected body. We've had countless, as I say, hours of testimony from all sides, including all of you on the council. And we need to get this started. We need to do the mapping, we need to do the monitoring, and we need to continue to monitor this as we go forward. Having said that, I would respectfully request favorable action. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. To lay out some of the procedure here for members of the public, this is the second passage. We are examining PCO 4-22 sub B, which is the same version as the City Council passed a month ago. If there were any changes, amendments to it whatsoever, then if this City Council were to have a vote on any amended version, it would become first passage rather than second passage, and we would have to have second passage at another evening. First, any comments from the members of this committee? Councilman Gebhardt.
I had just a housekeeping one for the solicitor. I've got a constituent here tonight who just had a question about language in the definition. So it's page 1, line 38 and 39. So this is the definition of a short-term rental of dwelling unit. And it's particularly the part of the statement that says, I'll give a little lead in and then highlight the section. Granted without an intervening period of non-occupancy to the tenant currently occupying the premises under a written lease for a term of more than 31 days. We just were looking at that one quickly. Just want to make sure that that is the intent, and maybe you can just take us through.
Sure. The intent of the carve-out that's at the end of the definition there is intended to not capture a month-to-month tenancy that follows a long-term lease. So naturally occurring to many leases at the end is the option for the continuation of a longer-term lease. And what we didn't want is a 30-day month that follows that month-to-month tenancy that's created after the end of a formal lease to somehow be captured into the short-term rental. So the idea is to make clear that a month-to-month tenancy that occurs following a longer-term lease, which is essentially anything beyond the scope of this, would not be captured or deemed a short-term rental. So it's to make clear that traditional leases are still traditional long-term leases. They're not short-term leases. Or a short-term rental.
And is more than 31 days the intent, or would it be less than 31 days? That is the carve out. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm happy to continue looking at this for a moment if there are other questions that come up, just so it's not unduly delayed.
Council Solicitor, if I may. I believe that the definition of the short-term rental of dwelling unit, starting at line 35, refers to 31 consecutive days or fewer. It states 31 consecutive days or less, and then it has the caveat that the month-to-month extensions of a month-to-month lease, that traditional month-to-month leases are to be considered as month-to-month leases as they have traditionally been, as opposed to being considered short-term rentals just because they happen to be extensions in that manner. Obviously, the City Council has no ability to regulate those month-to-month leases as it would short-term rentals, because month-to-month leases are heavily regulated by the Rhode Island General Assembly under Chapter 3418. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rereading the section, I do believe that the language is consistent because it provides the clarification that month-to-month leases or longer-term leases that follow a lease are not part of the short-term rental. So I'm comfortable with the language as presented.
Thank you. I would also just add that if someone is intentionally participating in a short-term rental for a fixed period of time, as opposed to intending to create a month-to-month lease, this is really a protection for both parties, because if one is desiring to create a month-to-month lease, that comes with a lot of rights and responsibilities for both the tenant and the landlord. So short-term rentals, period of 31 days or less, different animal from a month-to-month tenancy. And I think that the definition here, starting at line 35 of the first page, helps to really make clear that distinction. Any other questions, comments from members of the committee? Questions, comments, members of the council? Councilman Snappy.
So, just to correct something that apparently has been a misstatement. On the Monday preceding February 9th, I offered to those who have been showing up to the council to further consider any amendments they might propose. I was later emailed on the 9th. Rather than being given the further amendments, I was told that no further amendments would be provided, that council would be retained and had been retained, and that they saw no reasonable path forward regarding the council. Despite these statements made in writing, they later told the local publication, The Beacon, that it was us, the council, who have not made any follow-up to them. That is mistaken, hopefully unintentionally. I want that made clear, that the offer was made to assist them, was initially accepted and then declined, and then misstatements, unintentional or otherwise, made to the local newspaper. So I am more than willing to go forward on the current draft as it stands, given that they have declined further efforts to assist them despite claiming they needed assistance.
Any other comments, members of the council? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, and also for the record, when I was speaking, I did, because Councilman Sinapi, it was his original ordinance that was written, I included Councilman Sinapi, because if you remember, I was introducing amendments. So I did encourage for the citizens to reach out to Councilman Sinapi, since he was the go-to person and the original sponsor of that the amended Lattiser bill. So I just want to go on record and identify that that's how Councilman Sinapi graciously took that responsibility. Thank you.
Any other comments, members of the council? Councilman Gebhardt.
I'll just say briefly that my focus in this effort, as I have dealt with a number of issues in some of the areas that I represent, having to deal with short-term rentals, and on balance, I was not in support of the original proposal for owner-occupied only. I feel strongly that property owners should be able to do with their property what they like, but should not become a nuisance. And so my focus in the revisions that we've made to this ordinance over the time that we've been working on it, were to balance the rights of the property owners, especially those who have taken the time to come and share their experiences with us, but also to make sure that we don't unintentionally create challenges in the neighborhoods for folks who have an expectation that they live in a residential neighborhood and do not live next to a business. And, should that business operating nearby to them or next door to them become an issue, that the city has sufficient teeth to be able to get it under control. With other zoning ordinances that we have on the books, we do sometimes have difficulty enforcing them or getting meaningful action. You just go down to Hale Avenue in Potawatomi. There's a house that's been burned down and sitting vacant for almost 5 years now. That, because of the rights and protections that the property owners have, there's been, no meaningful action that the city's been able to take on their behalf. So I don't want to end up in a situation like that, where we have, one or two bad apples that create issues across the city. I want folks who are supplementing or driving their main livelihood off of short-term rentals and all the benefits that we've discussed here in terms of getting new people into the city and the opportunities for property owners. We want to support that, but at the same time, we owe it to our constituents to make sure that the city has sufficient protections in place to weed out the bad apples. So for those reasons, I'm in support of what we have in front of us tonight. I'd be happy to vote in support of it. But, as throughout the entire process, my ears are still open, still listening. So thank you.
Any further comments, members of the council? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, thank you. I also agree with some of my colleagues, especially about the part that we listened to the public when they spoke. And we, was like, I think it was more like 10 or 12 hours that we listened, plus the public hearing. And I think we learned a lot, and we kind of gave a little, we listened, and it went both ways, I think. But I think the proposal that we have in front of us, and I know Councilman Zanapi was, put it together also, and Councilman Burhat worked on a lot of the questions, and even Councilman Lattisaw, who was really strong on some of his ideas at the beginning, came around thinking this was the best way. I'm also in favor of the one we have in front of us.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes before the full council meeting is set to begin, so I'll keep my remarks brief. I see the sub B, as a compromise. It's a compromise based on many hours of feedback, hours of work here in the council meeting, and many hours of work, I'm certain, outside of the council meeting as well, where different council members were giving feedback to the council solicitor. I'm sure that the council solicitor worked very hard, many hours, in preparing all of our different sets of amendments that were introduced and discussed at the previous meetings. And I think throughout that entire process, we came away with something quite good for the sub B. There are going to be different items in there that we have as members of the council and members of the public alike, each have different opinions on and may prefer. I'm not crazy about all of the amendments. I'm not crazy about all of the original language. There are a lot of amendments that I did support and that are in here. There are some amendments that I wish had made it into the final draft but did not. But on balance, I think that, as Councilman Lattiser said, I think that it is important for us to get this whole process started, see how this framework works on the ground, and then if we see some things that, okay, this is not working as intended, then we absolutely have an opportunity to go back and make those changes. But we're not going to know for sure if it's working or not until we actually see some of this in action. And I think that inaction here, to sit on our hands and make the perfect the enemy of the good, that's a course of action that I certainly can't support. So, based on all of that, I'm comfortable moving ahead with sub B this evening in my personal view as a member of the City Council. If there are public comments that are brand new, that are raising issues that we haven't seen before, that's of course something that I'm willing to consider. But I think that throughout the multiple meetings, comments inside and outside of the City Council, we have thoroughly examined this issue. I see that it's almost 7 o'clock now. That's my comments. I look forward to us picking up on this in front of the full council. Do we have a motion to refer to the full council favorable action?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we will take public comment on this during the full council meeting when it comes up on the agenda. There is public comment. There's also an opportunity for public comment under Rule 41. There's a sign-up sheet on the podium there. And we are also having a public hearing on a zoning ordinance where members of the public will be able to speak on that as well. So there's a number of opportunities this evening to be heard.
The committee adjourns at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you.
Mr. Howe? Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Here.
8 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Howe will introduce our guest that's going to lead us in the Pledge of the Allegiance this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I have the distinct honor of introducing Sophia Cabral. She is 11 years old, a 6th grader at Warwick Veterans Middle School. She is the 6th grade spelling bee champion for the city of Warwick and will be representing the city of Warwick for, in the 6th grade, March 18th at Lincoln Middle School. Sophia, congratulations. Thank you so much. And if you have anything you want to say, feel free to say it, or it's your duty to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free
Well, we wish you best of luck in the States, and congratulations on winning the Warwick title, and we look forward to inviting you back when you win the state title, so. Next up this evening is general communications. This is announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I have a few announcements. We have a parking ban this evening starting at 8 p.m. There is distant learning for the schools tomorrow morning as well. On March 22nd, the City of Warwick will be hosting a small business summit. We will have representatives from the federal government, state, and local agencies will be available to speak with and meet directly with small business owners here in Warwick and people interested in doing business in Warwick. There will also be a number of speakers doing workshops on different topics affecting small business owners. This will be from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Sawtooth Building on March 22nd, and more information will be made available as the date gets closer. Are there any other general communications from members of the council at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to executive communications. There are none. Next on the agenda is public comment. So this is the last call. There's a sign-up sheet. This, for public comment here, this is to speak on any type, any issue affecting Warwick. If you would like to speak on the zoning change, there's an opportunity to do that later on this evening. And if you would like to speak on the short-term rentals, there's an additional opportunity to speak on that as well. Rule 41, after general communications and prior to the consent calendar, at the last regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council each month, there should be a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes during which citizens may comment about Warwick city government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. Each citizen signed up and present shall have not to exceed 5 minutes to speak, provided, however, there is not more than 6 citizens are signed up and present, and the 30 minutes will be split evenly amongst the speakers. Time shall not be transferable among speakers. The topics for comments shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of the earlier of all speakers concluding their allotted time or 30 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires a unanimous vote of the council. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who signed up? We have 5 individuals who signed up this evening. The first individual is Robert Cushman.
Thank you, Council President. My comments I want to deal with, I just want to set the record straight. On a conversation on one of Mayor Picosi's Facebook pages concerning legislation that I passed many years ago, eliminating lifetime health care for future elected Warwick politicians. And Councilman Howell put a couple of comments on there that I just need to clarify. And I think the councilman was alluding to the fact that the legislation that I put through was somehow going to benefit myself and exclude me from the lifetime health care exclusion. And that's blatantly false. That is not true. The original legislation that I put forward in 2007 was to eliminate lifetime health care for everybody in the city, because I recognized the problem that we're facing today. We have a $400 million unfunded liability. If that legislation was passed, I could tell you right now, we would probably have $100 to $200 million in liabilities eliminated from that. But the point I want to make is that, Councilman, you need to do your homework. That legislation was changed after I was not elected. I put my political career on the line to identify a problem and to try to fix the problem. And I think what you need to do, because I've looked at your commentary where you do oppose lifetime health care for elected officials, and I praise you for that. But you're a seated councilman. You have a chance to do something about it. There's people in this city that are former politicians
that are going to get lifetime health care. There's no union contract that governs that. I'm challenging you tonight to put some legislation through to end that once and for all, so that those politicians who serve 6 years, 8 years, whatever, when they become 60 years old, they shouldn't get that benefit. You yourself said that. So as a member of the Finance Committee, as someone who's looking to stop this, I challenge you to do something about that and do it. And the time I do have left, the situation where the former council president received health care benefits, once again, the retirement board approved that. You're on the retirement board. We need to stop rubber stamping legislation or things that come before you. You need to start asking questions. There is one, I researched all the ordinances. There's one ordinance in the city that governs the retirement board's decision reflecting health care. And it basically says this: when a council person has to be 60 years old, you got to start asking questions. Because if someone asked the question, when I looked at that agenda that came before the retirement board, and if you start asking questions, I just don't want to see one line that says councilman former this gets this. You should be asking questions about the specific ordinances, the specific times of service that allow that person to get those benefits. And this is another point. There are no ordinances that govern anything else for healthcare. You're absolutely right about that. We just passed a firefighter contract that there's no ordinances that cover the OPEB benefits that are put in that contract. This is the kind of problem we have. We pointed that out during the firefighter contract ratification. There is absolutely not one ordinance that governs how that provision is going to work. And just like now we have problems with a council person getting a benefit that he shouldn't have received, that the administration approved, that you approved, that the finance director approved, and everybody else just about in the city approved, that shouldn't have happened. And it just proves the point that I said before, and other people. This council needs to stop putting on the agenda, Council President, start writing some ordinances to govern OPEB, because you just have one problem right now with one individual. I guarantee you there's going to be a multitude of problems in the future with firefighters and other people, because we have no policies on how we're governing OPEB. That needs to be done. And Councilman, I'm going to be listening tonight, and hopefully you docket that ordinance to eliminate lifetime health care for those future people who are still eligible. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next individual is Rob Cody.
Thank you, Council President. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the fire contract that was passed on January 30th. Do you know that we spent more time speaking about a ridiculous ordinance on yard sales than we did on a $26 million contract? And with one exception, one council person asked pertinent questions, and then he was shot down. In the 20 years I've been coming to council meetings, I've never seen a council member be shut down by the council president for asking pertinent questions. For the second contract in a row, Mr. McAllister, I asked you specific questions, which I'm allowed to do under the Open Meetings Act, and you couldn't answer any of those questions. And one of those questions was a yes/no question. Did you read the contract? And you refused to answer that. That is shameful, because I would expect that when you're going to bid, when you're going to sign off and vote on a $26 million contract, that you have read that contract. So you try to vilify me for asking you pertinent questions. But if you were in the private sector, and I understand you don't have any private sector experience, but the fact of the matter is, in the private sector, you would be obligated to answer those questions and to read that contract, so when you were questioned, that you would know everything about it. But you failed to do that in 2019, and again. And what's more disturbing is you pushed my questions to the administration, who was unable to answer them. The fire chief and the finance director, Mr. Peter Schaefer, couldn't answer how many sick days there were, although 2 days prior to that meeting, they sent me that letter through public records access. So you're not doing your homework. You deflect the questions to the administration. They're not voting on the contract. You are. you have an obligation to the taxpayers, not the special interests, to read the contract and understand it. You have illegal language in that contract. I brought it up to Mr. Ricks about the disability, presumed disability. It's illegal. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm sure I'll say it again 3 years from now. But I'll also continue about fuel and how we're spending so much money on fuel. On the 1 day off I've had in months, I videotaped a city worker for in excess of 3 hours in a dump truck with a diesel engine, hiding out in 2 different places with the engine running for 3 hours, never exiting that car, never exiting the truck, and not doing any work. At any given time, I can video that. I've done it in the past. We've got the ladder truck that goes up to Warwick Neck to get coffee. We had the heavy rescue go up to Warwick Neck to get coffee from over by Post Road, who ran his engine for 30 minutes unattended. I got 3 phone calls today. Dave's Market, the new engine 8, brand new, left running while the men are shopping, violating the Rhode Island DEM diesel laws. And you guys aren't doing anything about it. It's a pertinent question. You all know that I've filmed this stuff for years. It's worse now than ever, and I will guarantee you this. I've been very gracious about this. I've never mentioned anybody's name or put anybody on camera. I always, when I see this waste, I give the number of the plate or the number of the vehicle. By the way, H41, the dump truck, doesn't even have a license plate on it. Who's checking the vehicles? Nobody's checking the vehicles. But I can tell you this. I will guarantee you that on my next day off, I'll find the same thing. I'll videotape it. And just like yesterday, 16,000 people will watch it, and you need to do something about it. I've never put anyone's face on camera or confronted them, but now I'm going to, because it's gotten worse, and this council just isn't doing anything about it. And we're spending money we have to pay for. I just don't understand, and you would know this if you had any experience in private practice. Private business doesn't tolerate this. The individual that did that violated the union contract. He violated the Diesel Idling Act for the state of Rhode Island. What do you guys do? No problem. Also, I was very disturbed at the last fire contract meeting, not to regress, 2 council members videotaped and photographed asleep during the ratification of a $26 million contract. Inexcusable. It's an embarrassment, and you need to step up the plate and learn how to read your contracts.
Thank you. The next speaker is Cindy Wilson.
Cindy Wilson. So I got here at 5 o'clock, and it's not easy to come here. And I wasn't joking when I said my watch told me my heart was telling me something was wrong. I have a heart monitor on, and it talks to my watch. It's not easy to sit here and talk because Mr. McAllister and Mr. Howe have no respect for the citizens of Warwick, and that's unfortunate. And the fact that we're trying to say, hey, can we quit wasting money, and that makes people angry, I really don't understand. If you really cared about the citizens, why wouldn't that bother you? Why wouldn't you say, hey, let's stop the trucks from running? Let's use Stop and Shop, pick up at the door. I mean, that happened in COVID. Why are we sitting outside for a half hour? But more than that, recently, there was a threatening and very negative letter sent to Mr. Cody that happened to include me and referred to me as the effing slut. It was of a threatening nature, and it's so immature that some firefighter, and we actually know who it is, would write a letter. It was like 6th grade. It was that immature. And it scares me because now, since they named me, if I call the fire department, are they going to come? Are they going to take their time? I noticed you got the police here as soon as Rob spoke out. I told you I might be having a heart attack. I don't see the fire department. So are they going to come rescue me? Are they going to help me if my house burns down? Or are they going to be able to hold a grudge because you guys allow it? Not all of you, Mr. McAllister and Mr. Howe, because you have such disregard for the citizens. It makes you angry that we want to speak up. And I'll give the analogy again. If I went to my husband and said, well, I don't have a husband, but if I went to him and said, I need more money for food, I wouldn't get pissed off if he said, why? I wouldn't get pissed off if he said, are you using coupons? Are you buying name brands? Are you shopping at good stores? I would just say, all right, let's work together. So I don't know why this makes everybody so angry, you know, and honestly, you know, I didn't know my watch would talk to me. This is the first time I've had this on for 3 weeks, the first time it did. So thanks for that, and thanks for the fire department to help me.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Michael Zarum.
Mr. President, I'm going to relinquish my spot. I'll be speaking later on during the appropriate agenda item for the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The final person that signed up is Mr. Fife.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. The last time I spoke was at the fireman contract. I just want to say we are not against the firemen. We are against higher taxes, against extreme radical contracts. Also, when I quoted the mayor, that he was talking about the 2 new high schools, and the people here spoke against that, and people said that you can't build high schools for that price. Rob Cody and Bob Cushman came up with proof that you can't. Bob Cushman is a financial analyst. He does that for a living. And Rob Cody is in construction. He knows his business. The greatest resource the city has is its people. You should tap to the talent of the people, like Rob and Bob. Also, work, nobody talks about the debt that we're in. Work is $1 billion in debt. Billion with a B, as in Bob. Work is in a financial crisis and nobody talks about it. We're in a financial crisis, we are in debt because of funded pensions, unfunded pensions, and health care. When Councilman Morello was the president, he was talking to the fiduciary, and this was during the budget, and he asked the fiduciary, what is the point of no return? And the fiduciary said, oh, that was 5 years ago. When was Councilman Marola the president? About 4 years ago? So 5 plus 4 is 9 years. 9 years, and nothing paid out to lower the debt. Nothing. We're in a financial crisis. Nobody talks about it. You do business as usual, like nothing's wrong. I talked to Councilman Crowley one time. He's not here now, but when he was, I remember one thing he said. He said, we can still borrow money. That's amazing. So when we can't borrow money, that's where we're going to do something. And it's incredible. Judge Flanagan, Judge Flanders, thank you. He said that work qualifies for receivership. And that was about 4 years ago or more. And nothing's been done. it gets worse. The community, Warwick community, cannot be taxed for more than what the community can afford, period.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Fife.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we're moving to the consent calendar. First up is PCR 21-23, a resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bid 2023-323 Alpha, bid 2023-323 Bravo, bid 2023-323 Charlie, bid 2023-061, bid 2023-062, bid 2023-311, bid 2023-347, bid 2023-375, bid 2023-374, bid 2023-334, bid 2023-024, bid 2023-333, bid 2023-376. That concludes the bid calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Okay. Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on PCR 21-23.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks? Yes. Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, consent passes.
Thank you. Consent calendar passes. Councilman Howe, I believe one item has been removed from the consent calendar?
Yes, Mr. President. That was formerly bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13. That is now PCR 24-23, and the committee recommended to hold.
Okay, we will hold till March 20th. Next up on the agenda is referred business. This is going to be the public hearing. So this is PCO 5-23, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Warwick, 281 Associates. Committee report, land use.
Recommend public hearing.
Second by Councilman Lattiser. All in favor to open the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, good evening, everyone. I just want to go over the format for our public hearings. First, we ask that anyone that is speaking to please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone. We have the stenographer here this evening that's going to record everything. We will have someone present what is before us this evening. Then we will, council members will be able to ask questions. Then I will ask members of the public who are here to speak in favor of this project to come up. Then I will ask members of the public speaking against this project to come up and speak. And then I will offer an opportunity for anyone who would like to be heard on this topic this evening. Then it will come back to the council for further discussions. So at this time, is there anyone here to present PCO 5-23?
Good evening, Mr. President, honorable members of the Warwick City Council. For the record, Attorney K. Joseph Shikachi, representing the applicant tonight, 281 Associates LLC. Before you tonight, honorable members of the City Council, is a request to change the zoning for Plat 246, lots 240, 243, 260, 261, which are currently zoned office and residential A10. It's a mixed-use zoning as it stands today. The request before you tonight is to change all of that land to an A7 PDR overlay zone, which would allow construction of 21 multifamily unit condominiums. With me tonight is Scott Moorhead, the project engineer, Ed Pimento, our land use expert, Jim Cronin, our traffic expert, Polly Degan, our landscape expert. I am not planning on having anybody testify this evening, only to answer questions from the council or the public. But they're all available here and they're all briefed. Some of them submitted reports, which I believe have been included in part of the record. Also, the owners, Mr. Chauffeur, Mr. Parasol of 281 Associates, are also present. I'd like to take the board through a very brief chronological history of this project and bring us to where we are today, and hopefully respectfully ask for a zone change and answer any questions the council may have. This project started about 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, where the developers purchased the property and retained site control, wanted to build a gas station, a car wash, wanted to build a Verizon store and retail operations, a lot of things, went through a lot of reiterations, met with the former administration, former town planner, city planner, went through all different reiterations. None seemed to fit within the use of the comprehensive plan, which called for office and residential on this property. Ultimately, COVID came, retail changed, the market bore and the needs of the community bore additional housing. My clients put together a plan, started the process, and wanted to build 30 units of housing there. Did a layout, invested considerable amount of money, had meetings with the now current planning department staff, and it was decided for a whole host of reasons, the property is very unique, to go with 23 units. 23 units was what was applied for by the city. 23 units are what received master plan approval and a favorable, I believe also unanimous recommendation to the council for a zone change. My clients then began a little bit more due diligence before they came here. They secured wetlands approval. It was a long, arduous task to go through the DEM process. It came back that DEM felt the land could support not 23, but 21 units. That is what is before you tonight, a request for 21 units, 2 units less than the planning board approved well over a year ago. My clients also, the property is bifurcated with an easement from National Grid at the time, which is now Rhode Island Energy. My clients have secured approval for that as well. And that also helped. We had met extensively with the fire department to make sure we had adequate turning radiuses. The request tonight is for 21 units. If we are fortunate to receive this approval this evening and second passage next month, we would then return back to the planning board for yet another public hearing where we would fine-tune, the plan regarding state DOT approval, work with the city building inspector regarding access, the city engineer, and Kent County Water. So those would be other approvals that we would have to obtain prior to coming back to the city if we receive a favorable zoning request. So this is very consistent with what we're proposing with the surrounding area. All the property behind it is zoned residential. Some of the property on the street is zoned residential. Some of the property across the street is zoned office. This is on the 195 interchange. This is pretty much close to the geographic center of Rhode Island. It's a very convenient on and off ramp to the city. It is very close to Apponaug and all the wonderful redevelopments going on there. And also it's just down the street, down 117 toward Route 2. That is the sum and substance of the history. I would open it up to any questions, but I have the planning expert can answer any questions if the board or the council has any questions. The landscape architect, the traffic expert, and the engineer. Obviously, we'll design zero net runoff because that's what you have to do. The law requires it. You know, would this council approve it? We'd make sure all drainage was contained on the property. We would tap into existing water lines from Kent County. We have yet to get that approval, but we would certainly have to do that before the project moved forward. We have received our wetlands approval for the property. It's a property, quite frankly, with challenges. That's why you see the property went from 30 to 23 to hopefully its final number today, which is 21. But this is a great opportunity for housing. We don't really need any new offices. Office is changing. The COVID has changed the dynamics for office and the need for it. We need more housing in the city of Warwick. These would be market rate housing. These are not subsidized. These are not affordable. They are whatever the market rate would bear. But with Kent County Hospital re-energized and the professional staff that work there, this is a great opportunity so people who live close to the hospital can find it. But also this would be housing for anybody and everybody who would purchase a unit. Be happy to answer any questions from the council or provide the team to answer a question that is beyond the scope of my expertise, which is very limited. And answer any questions the public may have as well.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Sinapi.
Howdy, it would be nice to see this area developed. And I only have one question, and it's regarding a comment by Al DeCourt, back on the 14th, where he said the Units 2A, 2B, and 3A, when exiting from their driveways, want you to back out in a southerly direction and travel north to turn around to egress due to proposed angle of the driveways. These units should be reconfigured to be 90 degrees as to the travel lane. I just want to know if that's been addressed, and I suspect the answer is yes, because you had stated the fire department was consulted regarding the angles, but checking in anyway.
They have not been addressed yet. They will be addressed at the planning, before the next planning board hearing. But we have had numerous consultations with the fire department, and Mr. DeCourt raises a very important issue. We'll have our engineers look at it, and we'll address it before we go through the next level of approval.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gephardt.
Thank you for your presentation. Much appreciated. I'm recalling that not long ago we approved another, so my question is about traffic. You mentioned that you had done some traffic work. We approved I think a mixed use or a commercial development just
South of that.
South of
It was the
that.
car wash.
That's
Car
right.
wash and some retail, a coffee shop.
That's right. So my question is really in the traffic analysis, is that development factored in? I know it's not there yet, but I just want to make sure it's part
I'll
of
call
that.
up Mr. Cronin, and we just happen to have Mr. Cronin here, who also, his company did the traffic analysis for that one, and the same company did the traffic analysis for this one.
Thank you.
So I'll ask Mr. Cronin to come forward, be sworn in. And can you answer the councilman's question regarding traffic? When you did your presentation, your analysis, did you include counts from the proposed development to the south as well as this development? Thank you.
No, we started this probably about 4 years ago. Yeah, the traffic counts were done early in 2019. Oh, sorry.
The clerk's gonna, if you
Sir,
could just
can I get your
introduce
name
yourself.
again, please?
What's that?
Your name?
James P. Cronin III. I work for Crossman Engineering.
Okay, thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I
help me
do.
God. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, we started this in 2019. We did the original traffic counts. And at the time, I was not aware of any other development going in this area. And it shouldn't make any difference to the results because we have such low traffic volumes. For 21 condominiums is a really good use for this land, this property, because it's such a low traffic volume. You're not gonna, you're looking at about 10 trips in the morning, I think 12 trips in the afternoon.
Excuse me, sir, we just gotta pause for a second. We had
Sorry.
just a little malfunction there. If you could just go back a couple sentences.
Basically, right, this is a very low traffic generation use. So we feel even if you have a development next door or close to the area, it's not going to make any difference. We're looking at 10 trips in the morning peak, maybe 12 trips in the afternoon peak, entering and exiting both driveways. So it's very, very low traffic volume.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
More of a comment. I reviewed the documents that came with the application. I understand that this is not the end of the process. This is a midpoint, really, in this very long process. I can appreciate how long it takes to get some of these various approvals from DEM, all after going through the planning board process. And next, if this council takes favorable action, going back to the planning board and proceeding with the next steps there. I can also appreciate how we all see a lot of vacant office space, a lot of vacant commercial space, and we all know how hot this housing market is. This housing market is not going to just go away. There's so much need here in the city of Warwick, across the state, as well as all of the national trends. Whether at the national, state, or local level, there just has not been that construction of new residential housing that's been keeping up with demand in the last couple of decades. So I think that a modern townhouse style like this, especially given this location's history, it's been, I don't know how long it's been vacant, but I know that it's been vacant for quite a long time. And I can appreciate from your presentation how other uses don't seem to be quite suitable, and how this development of 21 townhouse-style houses, residential dwellings, would have a great benefit to that parcel. I can also see the benefit to the city, considering the housing shortage. So I wanted to thank you for coming this evening, along with the experts, to answer our questions.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any other questions from members of the council? Okay. Hearing none, are there any questions? Does anyone like to speak in favor of this project at this time? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this project? Come on up to the microphone, sir. Yeah.
Good evening, members of the City Council, members of the public who are here this evening, and Mr. Shikachi and the applicant. For the record, my name is Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Last name Zarum, is spelled Z with a Z, like a zebra, Z-A-R-U-M. I am a resident of 139 Northampton Street in Warwick, Ward 2. I'm here to ask for favorable action tonight at this phase of this application. I'm going to be short, and one of the reasons I'm in favor of it is when I look at land use overall in the city and all the different zones that we have, and each different zoning classification, whether it's industrial or whether it's commercial or whether it's residential or open space, we all ask ourselves, what's the most appropriate land use? That also changes with economic times. My understanding right now is that if you compare office, which I believe this is currently zoned partially for, versus residential, I believe there's a much, much higher demand for residential housing in our city than there is for office space right now. I think to keep things in balance, it'd be appropriate to approve this evening and move it in the direction of the type of residential housing. I also had a conversation with some people in the planning department to go over some of the numbers this afternoon. As far as the density, I had questions on whether it would be too dense. I think most developers like to put as many units in as possible. That has a tendency to get some of our residents upset, and they have a new name for that. They call it crime zoning. But I think that 12 units is very, very reasonable. I don't think it's crime zoning. I think it's very, very appropriate. And I would just support this and ask for favorable action. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public here to speak in favor of this project? Are there any other members of the public here to speak in favor of this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project at this time? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Okay, hearing none. Councilman Howard, do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close public hearing.
Second by Councilman Ricks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any additional questions or comments from members of the council at this time? Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to put it on the record that I assume as this thing moves forward, and again, keep in mind, you all know I'm a particularly pro-housing individual, that this particular development, it will comply with, in fall in step with the comprehensive plan? Any zoning amendments or comprehensive amendments that need to be made, et cetera?
If they are, the project is currently zoned residential and office. We're changing it to all residential. If the planning board or somebody decides along the way we need additional approvals, we'd certainly comply. But honestly, if we needed it, we would have asked for it before. Our analysis and our expert, it's a judgment call, and we relied on the planning department, and we think they made the right call.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm also in favor of this project. I think it takes a lot to make housing, and look at all the steps that you're taking for 21 units. I know you were originally hoping for more than that.
For 30.
For 30, but 21 is a good addition, and it's a good location for it. And I'm a big supporter of housing as well. And we see the work that goes into this. So I thank you for bringing that to us this evening. There are no additional questions or comments. We have a motion for favorable action. It's been seconded. I'm looking for a motion, for a motion. Councilman Sinapi, it's in your ward. Would you like to make a motion? Second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Howe. Any other questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, first passage.
Thank you for first passage.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Next up on the agenda is the unfinished business. First up is PCO 4-22 Sub B, Committee Report Land Use.
Recommend favorable action.
Okay, at this time, during committee, I know a number of members of the council were able to speak on this. I'd like to open it up to members of the public at this time. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on PCO 4-22? This is the short-term rental ordinance. It's up for second passage. Just please come to the mic and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, members of the council. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. Good evening. My name is Mitchell Edwards. I represent Gregory Hill Realty Trust, RI, and its trustee, William Gagnier, on this matter. You've heard from him before, and you've heard from others before. This is my first time appearing before you. And I was here for the committee discussion, and I understand that there was comment about how much time everyone has spent on this ordinance. And my view of it is that it's not about how much time we spend on it, but getting it right. And this ordinance has a lot of problems, and I want to just briefly talk about those. It's our position that this proposed ordinance on short-term rentals violates the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, Rhode Island state law, the Building Code, and the Rhode Island Fair Housing Act. These violations are pervasive throughout the proposed ordinance. I'll come to some of those and discuss some of those violations today. I don't think I'll have enough time to discuss all of them. But let me cover some. First, the ordinance violates the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment. The ordinance is treating short-term rental properties different from other dwelling units, such as long-term rental properties, without any rational basis. Rhode Island state law requires that regulations and standards shall be consistent for each land use, type of development, or type of building or structure within a district. The ordinance fails that statute. The Rhode Island Supreme Court has held that the regulated use within an established district must be applicable to all property located within such district so as to avoid that discrimination would be a denial of the equal protection of the laws as guaranteed under the 14th Amendment. So let's take as an example the section 510.4 of the ordinance, which requires the annual inspections of short-term rentals by the building official and the fire marshal. That ordinance does not apply to long-term rentals, only short-term rentals. There's no rational basis for this. There's no difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental for this purpose, yet the ordinance seeks to impose this requirement only as to short-term rentals. Another example, Section 510.8, which sets an arbitrary maximum of occupancy to 2 persons per bedroom, without taking into consideration, for example, families with children. This is another difference between how the ordinance that the city has is different with respect to short-term rentals than the Warwick's building code. For example, the building code states that in every dwelling unit of 2 or more, in every dwelling unit of 2 or more rooms, every room occupied for sleeping purposes, a bedroom, by one occupant shall contain at least 70 square feet of floor space, and every room occupied for sleeping purposes by more than one person shall contain at least 40 square feet of floor space for each occupant thereof. That's how Warwick is dealing with bedrooms outside of short-term rentals. But for short-term rentals, you're leaving it to the building inspector with no standard, just up to the building inspector, how they're going to define bedroom and limiting it to the number of people of 2. That inconsistency has no rational basis. In addition, there's a First Amendment violation. 510.2G of the proposed ordinance says dwelling units on properties where weddings or other special events are occurring are prohibited. This is again a distinction for short-term rentals that doesn't exist for long-term rentals or other use of similar dwelling units. If a short-term rental wanted to have a justice of a peace come into the backyard of a short-term rental that's on the water in a beautiful part of Warwick, where there's 4 people there to get married or to say their vows, there is no legitimate reason to preclude that just because it happens to be a short-term rental. There's also a Fourth Amendment violation. The U.S. Supreme Court has dealt with the issue of the type of information that should be available to city officials under these types of ordinances, the kind of requirement that's in this ordinance. In the city of Los Angeles, California v. Patel, the United States Supreme Court held that a municipal ordinance virtually similar to the ordinance that's being proposed here was unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. That does not seem to be factored in to the council's consideration. As the council, I suspect, knows, there's also a Rhode Island General Assembly passed a law that's current law, 42-63.1-14, which encourages short-term rentals and forbids cities, towns, and municipalities from prohibiting short-term rentals. In this particular ordinance that's being proposed for passage, there are prohibitions, for example, in certain zoning districts like GB, even though that district allows for detached single-family dwelling units within it, which includes the type of short-term rental properties that fall within the definition of detached single-family dwelling units. This inconsistency, this disparate treatment, is a clear violation of state law. In addition, the practical effect, the impact that this ordinance will have, and the burdens placed on it, and the economic hardship that the owners of short-term rentals will incur, has the practical effect of prohibiting short-term rentals. I talked a bit about the burden of the inspections. such inspections that are not required in long-term rentals. Those inspections take time away from potential renters, and if people own property, multiple properties, it impacts them economically. Same thing on the bedroom issue that I raised earlier. That limits the number of renters that you can rent to because it has a discriminatory effect on families. Another reason why it impacts the Rhode Island Fair Housing Act and would be a violation. Finally, it's inconsistent, this ordinance, with the City of Warwick's comprehensive plan. The plan sets forth goals for Warwick to continue to develop into a more sustainable, more welcoming community for those who visit and live there. Among the primary goals of the plan were to support the development and sustainability of locally owned businesses, provide incentives for property improvements, improve the business environment, and incorporate neighborhood-based commercial development into the neighborhood planning process. The ordinance does none of these things, and for a litany of reasons is inconsistent with the plan. So I know it takes time to do these things, but it's more important that we get it right. It's our position, and my client's position certainly, that the ordinance does not get it right. It violates the Constitution, it violates Rhode Island law, and it should not be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public that would like to be heard on this issue at this time? Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gerald Galasha. I've spoken once before on this matter. Following him, he kind of said everything that I wanted to say, okay? But there's also the effect that this takes on people like the zoning department. You're putting a lot of inference on them to turn around and keep up with all these inspections, all these terms, a lot of vague language that's up to them to interpret, that we don't have any idea by the ordinance or the amendments that we saw how it's going to affect us. For example, my unit is currently booked through August, okay? If I have to turn around and get it inspected, I'm going to have to try and work with the zoning department or the building department to get them in there. I've already passed a CO. I'm not doing any more work. If I did, I'd have to get a permit. If I got a permit, I'd have to get another CO. I mean, so what are these inspections checking on? I mean, my building was just completely renovated a month ago. We are for an initial inspection. We never had any qualms about that. But these 2 annual inspections are going to be burdensome, not just on us, but also on the building department. I know when I turned papers into the building department that were time sensitive, it took 3 weeks to get them looked at. That caused me to lose about $2,600 in revenue because I had to stop my building process. Is this going to be more of the same? I mean, there's 73 of us now. I would expect that the number will probably grow over time. And who's going to address that? The only other thing I have to say is to Mr. Sinapi. I know he had said that he received something saying that Mr. Gagne was going to hire an attorney. But this has been going on for 3-4 months. We've asked to be part of the equation for 3-4 months. We sent out many emails. I sent out a few. We've made several calls and got no calls back. I know he did speak to a few people, but on the 9th, at some point in time, we had to play the next card. We can't just walk into an attorney on the 26th of February and say, hey, we need your help. That's all I have to say.
You, sir? Go ahead.
Good evening again, Mr. President, members of the City Council, members of the public who are here. I support the intent of this legislation. I think it's very, very much needed. Once again, for the record, Michael Zarum, Ward 2. Some of you know that before I moved back to Warwick, and I lived in Boston for 20 years, I was a member of the Greater Boston Real Estate Board, not just the Greater Boston Real Estate Board, but also the Rental Housing Association. And with that, I just want to call your attention. I'm looking right now on the Greater Boston Real Estate Board says they do make a distinction between long-term and short-term. So I want to say that I disagree with the first speaker in trying to close the gap between long-term rentals and short-term. I mean, you can go from long-term, you can go to somebody who's been in the home for over 50 years or more in Warwick, to people that rent for a year and need to relocate here for a job for a year, to shorter and shorter term, which might be for vacation in a place like Newport, Rhode Island, or down at the beaches, where things may rent for a week or a month. But the shorter term you go, you start getting more toward a rooming house, and a rooming house is not really consistent with what we have in most neighborhoods. So I also want to mention here, I'm looking at on the Greater Boston Real Estate Board's page, navigate short-term rental market. New Orleans and Massachusetts regulations were passed. The law H 3454 was an act regulating insuring short-term rentals, governs short-term rentals in Massachusetts. And I want to applaud this council, as well as the people in the planning department and Mr. Kravitz, for trying to move this forward, because I do think it is much needed legislation. Not sure if it's there yet, but I do support it moving in the direction it's going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please.
My name is Bob Byrne. I live in Ward 9. You'll have to forgive my misunderstanding or ignorance about this issue, but I wasn't even considering, when I was reading this ordinance from the get-go, because there was so much discussion of Airbnb, didn't occur to me that this was really only covering dwelling units, which include cooking and eating facilities. So that does not include something which was considered a traditional B&B, which is everybody has their own bedroom, but the eating area is common, and usually you just get a breakfast in the morning. So I wanted to ask what the intent was is that a completely separate issue? Was it because there's no complaints about what the traditional B&Bs are? Why was this made specific only to, this ordinance made specifically only for something, it's a dwelling unit, but something maybe handled by Airbnb, but is not really considered a B&B in the strict sense of the word? So it's a point of information. It's just a question I have. I'd like to have clarified if possible.
Sure. There is, just to answer your question, sir, for the bed and breakfast, there's already regulations for that. So that's why it's not included in this.
Can I ask where those regulations are? Are they a part of the zoning ordinances as well? Because I only found one reference to B&B as a definition, the bed and breakfast as a definition, but the regulations would come under what, the lodging laws or something of that nature?
Yeah, we can follow up and get you that information, probably through the administration. We'll have that information for you.
All right, thank you.
Are there any additional comments from members of the public at this time on PCO 4-22 sub B? All right. Any additional comments or questions from members of the council? Councilman Gephardt.
So, we've spent our time here working on this ordinance, and, we all went into it with the perspective of we want to get it right. We've heard tonight that maybe there are possible issues. I'm just wondering if we're going to discuss if any of those, do we feel they have merit? Do we feel that this particular ordinance puts us in jeopardy? I am not the attorney here, but certainly don't want to move something forward that could come back to bite us. I'm with Mr. Zarum and others that the intent of this, I think, has landed at where we wanted it. We've had an iterative process, and that's good. But we certainly don't want to, get into some protracted legal battle about provisions that, we passed over in the interest of getting this off of our docket. So I'll put that out there for folks who are smarter than me to opine on, but thought it's worth conversation before we move this.
Where are we going to find anybody smarter than you? Do you have any questions for the solicitor, or just general comments and want to hear from your members of the council?
I'll open it up to the floor. There's a couple hands raised, and then we can certainly loop back to Mr. Walsh.
Sure. Councilman Lattiser, you're the sponsor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, in light of the discussions that we've heard this evening, I would address those concerns, if one wants to use that term, by simply saying that this ordinance has been vetted, a proposed ordinance has been vetted frontwards, backwards, sideways, etc. It has been thoroughly reviewed and drafted by our council solicitor. It has been completely reviewed with significant input from Director Kravitz, who has an umpteen years of experience in city planning, in dealing with these particular types of regulations. He has had significant input into the drafting of this. And in addition to that, our building official, who has been a building official probably somewhere between 25 and 30 years, has had extensive involvement in the language that is contained in this document this evening. And it is my position that we have done our due diligence. It's been reviewed and crafted by our own city council solicitor. It has been reviewed by 3 members of this city council who are attorneys. It has been not only reviewed, but to a large degree crafted by our planning director, who has far more experience, I think, than anyone in this room with these type of issues. And also, with regard to the building codes, our building official, Mr. Al DeCourt, I don't know anyone who is more familiar with the building codes than Mr. DeCourt. And he has played a very hands-on role in the crafting of this legislation. So the time is here. We need to pass this. And as we've said countless times, we certainly can monitor it going forward. And if something needs to be addressed or tweaked, we certainly can do that. But at this time, I would like to request favorable action on PCO 4-22 sub B.
Thank you. Councilman Ricks.
I would agree with the attorney presenting on behalf of his client in one respect. As I previously voiced, I see that there is a First Amendment issue when it comes to free exercise of religion, when it comes to specifically the limits on weddings, as a wedding can be performed by a total of 5 people, and that limit of 5 people may be well under the total number of occupants that are otherwise allowed. Now, should that event actually occur, then that particular provision would not be enforceable. That doesn't mean that the entire ordinance gets struck down or that it's unenforceable for all other reasons. It's simply a matter of if that particular provision is attempted to be enforced by the city, then that becomes, well, an issue with the enforceability of it. Doesn't mean that the whole rest of the ordinance is unconstitutional. I would say instead that as to all of the other provisions that were brought up, I do see a rational basis for distinction between long-term and short-term rentals. There are real differences. There are differences between the business model as well as the use. I'm not going to go into a whole long speech on the distinctions. I think that we're all familiar with that. We've had these previous discussions. I also think that there is most definitely a rational basis on the classification of bedrooms. It is within, in my belief, within the building code, and there is not the type of freewheeling discretion given to the building official that was purported, but instead the building official's decision, of course, has to be rational, and the building official is going to look at the classification of bedrooms based on what the tax assessor is putting forth and based on the definition in the ordinance itself. So I would say if the question is whether there's a rational basis to make these different regulations distinguishing between short-term and long-term rentals, then one should be very careful what they wish for here. Because we could always return to looking at all of the rights and obligations under Chapter 3418, the Rhode Island Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. In fact, Section 3418(7) states, this is titled Application, and I'm going to just quote this in full because it's very brief. This chapter applies to, regulates, and determines rights, obligations, and remedies under a rental agreement wherever made for a dwelling unit located within this state, period, end quote. This section, it's been in the books for quite some time, since at least 1986, and it has not been amended. And so when you look at principles of statutory construction, the General Assembly, they know how to amend a statute, and so the decision not to amend that statute when adding other statutes, specifically to short-term rentals, the courts are going to look and say, okay, well, if the General Assembly wanted to amend that statute, they would have done so. So, if the city of Warwick decided that short-term rentals, long-term rentals, all really the same thing, let's subject short-term rentals to the same regulatory regime as long-term rentals, month-to-month rentals, say even week-to-week rentals, which are provided for under Chapter 3418, that comes with a host of not only rights for the landlords, but also responsibilities for the landlords and rights for the tenants. And yes, I use the word tenants because that is what the Rhode Island Residential Landlord and Tenant Act deals with. Now, one might think that okay, we have rentals for a distinct period of time. And then, just like a hotel, the owner of the property can just have the police come on over and boot the people out if they overstay their welcome. Well, if the occupants are considered tenants, not so much. Then we are looking at Section 341838, eviction for unlawfully holding over after termination or expiration of tenancy. I've had some experience in this area. As a landlord, some of my clients are landlords, some of my clients are tenants. I will say that for the landlords, it is most definitely not a pleasant process to have to go through Section 38. Imagine, if you will, if you were a landlord renting short-term rentals, you expect that folks will be there for a 3-day weekend, and then they'll be on their way. And let's say that they're not. And let's say hypothetically that they were having to abide by the regulations of the Landlord and Tenant Act. Then, God, it could take weeks. I'm sorry, not weeks, months. It could literally take months, over a month, to effectively get the tenant removed, even though the landlord was only expecting to host them for 3 days. Because now, if we were to treat short-term rentals the same way as long-term rentals, you not only get the good parts of that as a landlord, you also have to take all of the risks of having a tenant. So I think that the ordinance that's drafted, there are some parts that I'm not crazy about. It's a series of compromises, and I think that when it comes down to it, they are rational compromises. I do think that there are some issues here in the ordinance as drafted, sub B, that can be revisited, especially once we get a good sense of how is this actually working on the ground. But I don't think that we should be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I don't think we should be equating short-term rentals with long-term rentals and throwing together all of those rights and responsibilities that clearly are not suited for either the occupants or for the landlords as being a good compromise. For all of those reasons, I'm going to be continuing to support sub B this evening. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to call the vote, please.
Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Do we have a second? Second. Any questions or comments on the motion from members of the council? Okay. Yeah, is there any additional questions? No, then we can just proceed to the vote then. So, Councilman Lattiser, do you have a
Make a
motion?
motion to move the vote.
You have a motion for favorable action?
Motion for favorable action on PCO 4-22 sub B.
Second by Councilwoman Travis. Councilman Rex.
Mr. President, if anyone would like to sign on as a co-sponsor, I would be very happy to have that.
Okay. All right. With no additional questions or comments, it's been moved and seconded for favorable action. The clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Ms. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Snappy? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, second passage.
Thank you. Second passage for PCO 4-22 sub B.
Mr. President, may I just make a brief comment?
Yep. Go ahead. Councilman.
I'd like to thank all my members, all my colleagues on the city council, our council solicitor, Councilwoman Travis for co-sponsoring, our council liaison for all the efforts she's put into this, our planning director, our Al DeCourt, our building official, members of the public, both for and opposed in getting this done. It's been a huge effort by a very large group of people who played a significant role in this. And also, thank you to my colleagues on the council for their amendments as well. So, Mr. President, I'd just like to thank everyone for the support on this, and I think we've got us a really good piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're now moving on to new business. First up is PCO 18-22. That's going to be held until March 20th. Next up is PCO 20-23, Committee Report Finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser. This is for your crosswalk, correct?
Yes, it
Councilman
is.
Howe?
Yes, it is, Council President.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? Councilman Lattiser.
President, through the president to the chair, does this include my crosswalk at St. Kevin's?
Very sadly, I have to say no. No, I have to answer that no, Councilman.
I'm only fool. I just thought I'd throw it out there again for recognition.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
We're now moving to unanimous consent. Ward 2, anything under unanimous consent?
Pass.
Ward 3? Pass. Ward 4?
Pass.
Ward 5?
Pass.
Ward 6?
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8? Ward 9? Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business to this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
All those in favor of the docket session say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in the docket session. Ward 2, anything to docket this evening?
Pass.
Ward 3?
3 items, Mr. President. The first one is a resolution with a tentative title of Resolution in regards to the navigation easement in Cedar Swamp Road right-of-way.
Public properties.
Thank you. Docketing, the second one is a resolution in regards to increasing the bond authority for the Warwick Sewer Authority from $7 million to $30 million.
Finance.
Thank you. And the last one is a resolution requesting Rhode Island Airport Corporation install a sound barrier on Strawberry Field Road West as part of their cargo warehouse development.
Intergovernmental. Do you have any additional ones?
No, Mr. President, thank you.
You may have one more. All set. Ward 4, anything to docket this evening?
Pass.
Ward 5?
Yes, Mr. President. I have one, it's an ordinance, it's on behalf of the administration, and it is an ordinance adopting the Warwick Harbor Management Plan.
Ordinance Committee. Ward 6?
Yes, I have one. It's a resolution requesting the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge Bushneck Cove and the entrance of Warwick Cove across from the sandbar at the Oakland Beach Boat Ramp.
Intergovernmental. Anything else, Councilwoman?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. I have one, it's an ominous, it's a resolution, ominous withdrawals. Intergovernmental. Ward 8. Ward 9. There is no more business before us. We will see you next Monday. Good evening, everyone.